Hey there! Today we're diving into what might just be the single most important idea in all of economics, the law of supply and demand. So let's get right to it. You know, from the price of your morning coffee to the cost of gas for your car, there's this invisible force at play, setting the price for pretty much everything. But how does it actually work? Let's break that down.
Okay, so at its heart, this isn't really just one law. Think of it more like a tale of two powerful competing forces. On one side, you have what sellers want to offer, and on the other, what buyers are willing to pay.
Now, the key thing to remember is that this is all a theory. It's a model that kind of imagines this perfect little world, a free marketplace where buyers and sellers can just interact. And through all that back and forth, they naturally discover the so-called right price for something.
All right, let's start with the side of the equation we're all on, the consumer side. That's demand. All of our buying habits, when you put them all together, create this massive economic force, and it turns out it's surprisingly predictable.
I mean, this just makes sense, doesn't it? When something gets more expensive, we tend to buy less of it. If it goes on sale, hey, we buy more. That inverse relationship, price goes up, demand goes down, is the absolute core of the law of demand, assuming, of course, that nothing else changes.
So how do economists picture this? With something they call the demand curve. And it always slopes downward. As the price drops, the quantity people want to buy goes up. One big reason for this is what they call the income effect. Basically, when prices are high, our money just doesn't go as far, right? Now, this next part is super important. If the price changes, you don't get a whole new curve. You just kind of slide to a different spot along the one you're already on.
Okay, so price up, demand down. Simple enough. But are there any exceptions? I mean, are there ever times when this whole rule just gets flipped completely on its head? Well, yes, but they're pretty theoretical. There are a couple of really fascinating but super rare exceptions. First, you've got Giffen goods. These are like the most basic food staples. Imagine the price of something like potatoes goes up. A very poor family might have to stop buying more expensive foods, like meat, and actually end up buying more potatoes just to get enough calories. Weird, right? Then, on the total opposite end of the spectrum, you have Veblen goods. This is pure luxury stuff. Here, a higher price actually makes people want it more because it's a status symbol. We're talking supercars, exclusive designer bags, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's us, the consumers. Now let's flip the coin. What about the people actually making and selling this stuff? Let's talk about the producers. Now, the law of supply is basically the mirror image of demand. It's a direct relationship. The logic is simple. If you're a producer and you can sell your product for a higher price, well, you're going to want to make and sell a whole lot more of it, right? It's all about maximizing that profit.
And, yep, you guessed it, there's a supply curve too, but this one slopes upward. As the price goes up, the quantity that producers are willing to supply also goes up. Why though? Well, for one, a higher price means they can cover higher production costs. Plus, it might even make it profitable for less efficient companies to jump into the game. And just like with demand, remember, a simple price change just moves you along the curve.
So we've got two opposing forces, right? Consumers, who want low prices, and producers, who want high prices. They're basically on a collision course. So what happens when these two finally meet? This is the magic moment. That single point where the two curves, supply and demand, cross each other. That's what we call the equilibrium price. It is the one perfect price where the amount consumers want to buy is exactly the same as the amount producers want to sell.
At this exact point, the market is perfectly balanced. There's no leftover stuff sitting on shelves, and there are no frustrated buyers who can't get what they want. They call this the market clearing price because, well, the market clears. Everyone's happy. It's a stable, perfect balance. But of course, the real world is messy. It's not static. Things are constantly changing. So what happens when something besides price messes with our perfect little model? Okay. This is probably the most important distinction we're going to make today, the difference between a movement and a shift. A movement, remember, is just you sliding along the curve because the price changed. But a shift is when the entire curve, the whole line, picks up and moves left or right. This happens when some big outside force changes the entire game.
So what kind of things can actually shift that whole demand curve? Oh, tons of stuff. Let's say everyone suddenly gets a raise. Well, now people can afford more stuff at every price point. The whole curve shifts to the right. Or what if something becomes super trendy on TikTok? Boom, curve shifts right.
Or if the price of a substitute, like say Coke, goes way up, demand for Pepsi is going to increase. Again, a shift.
And the same thing happens on the supply side. The supply curve can totally shift. For example, if some new technology makes it way cheaper to produce something, suppliers can now offer more at every price. The whole curve shifts to the right. But on the flip side, what if a hurricane wipes out a bunch of orange groves? Well, the supply of oranges is going to plummet, shifting the curve to the left.
All right, let's get a little more nuanced here. We know that when price goes up, demand goes down. But by how much? Is our reaction to a price change the same for everything we buy? The answer is a big no. And this idea is called price elasticity. Think of it like a rubber band. If something is price elastic, its demand is super stretchy and sensitive, like plane tickets for a vacation. If the price suddenly doubles, a ton of people are just going to say, nah, not worth it, and demand plummets. But if something is price inelastic, its demand isn't stretchy at all. The classic example is gasoline. Even if the price goes through the roof, most of us still have to get to work, right? So we grumble, but we still buy it. Our demand doesn't change all that much.
Okay, so we've talked about curves, equilibrium, shifts, elasticity. A lot of theory. But let's get to the bottom line. Why does any of this actually matter out here in the real world?
Because it's not just a theory, it's a toolkit. It's the framework that helps pretty much everyone, from investors to entrepreneurs to economists, understand and even predict what's going to happen in the market. If you're starting a business, you have to guess at demand. If you're investing in a company, you need to know what forces are pushing its price up or down. This is the language of how the economy works.
So the next time you see a price jump, whether it's for avocados or the latest smartphone, you can stop and think like an economist. You can ask, wait, is this a shift in supply? Or is something changing with demand? Because once you understand these forces, you're not just looking at the world as it is. You've got a lens to see where it might be headed next.